Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to one more installment of Between the Shadows. This is Kara, and I am joined by my very favorite co host, as always, Miss Kristen.
Hey. Hey.
And we are, just going to pick up where we left off on our last episode.
On this very snowy, cold night in Colorado, y'all.
That's it. Yeah, we're watching the snow fall as we speak.
It's great. Love it.
The last thing we pretty much talked about was David and Amy setting up the trap on the stairs for Roger to fall and probably break his neck and die.
I think that was probably the plan. Mm-hmm. but yeah, no, he's not hurt too bad, but I mean, we thought
luckily he's not hurt too bad.
I mean, we certainly thought he was. I mean, it was bad juju, but
yeah. So Amy, she pretty much immediately runs to get Elizabeth and wakes her up and wants to make sure that Roger's okay. He insists that he's fine when Elizabeth gets down there to check on him, but says he knows that somebody tried to kill him. That was obviously a setup.
Definitely a setup. And pause, before we continue, I forgot to mention we are going to cover episodes 647 through 655.
Right.
For those of you who are wondering,
yes.
Unpause. Here we go. And David is fast getting that wire. He stretched across the stairs. He is fast to get rid of it.
He really is.
Because by the time Elizabeth got down the stairs, the wire was gone. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So, and he's wrapping it around his hands, and it's like, how did you do that without getting seen? So yeah, so he's fine, but he insists up and down that somebody's trying to kill him. And you know what? It's a good assumption. But
it's not the first time.
It's we remember the bleeder valve, y'all, and he thought Burke Devlin did that, but it was his own kid. Yeah. Guess what? It's his own kid again.
Right. Although this time he's got the excuse of being possessed.
True. If
you want to give him the benefit of the doubt.
But the problem is Roger can't prove any of it because that wire is gone, and Elizabeth's like, "You're okay if you say so."
You just tripped over your own old 2 feet.
Right, exactly. But the next scene, Elizabeth finds a tarot card in Roger's room.
She gets him up to his room and finds a tarot card.
Yeah. And Elizabeth knows from experience that, you can read the fortunes from tarot cards, and she knows that this tarot card has a meaning. She ain't got no idea.
Yeah.
She ain't got no idea, but she remembers from the seance that we talked about in the last episode, the seance where Magda showed up, and, Magda spoke through Carolyn, and through Carolyn, Magda spoke of a curse.
Yeah.
And she thinks that this incident happened to Roger, and that this tarot card, the incident that happened and the tarot card, they're connected, and that someone is trying to warn them, probably Magda.
Yeah.
And so she calls Stokes immediately.
Right away, yeah.
And says, "Can you come over sometime?" in the following day? And I love the way that Stokes responds. He says, "I won't fail you."
Yeah.
I'm like, yes, thank you, Stokes. I won't fail you. Yeah. I love it. And this kind of gives me the idea that
there's
Stokes,
macabre and weird. I'm there.
Yeah, I won't fail you. Mm-hmm. And it kind of gives me the idea that Stokes is intrigued by what is happening for one.
Definitely. When he's pretty much tied in with the Collins family anyways, with his ancestors, he's always been interested with his studies with the Collins family anyways.
We already know they're connected because of Ben.
Yeah.
And he knows it too. And so he's like, okay, I'm there. Yeah. I'm invested.
Yeah.
And so one, it tells me that he's intrigued by what's happening. Great, let me come over but also he's very eager to help Elizabeth.
Yeah.
And I kind of love that.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. So the next scene, Amy is sitting on the stairs waiting for David, and Amy has clearly been up to the West Wing again, but David is not so sure. There is a scene after Roger gets back to his room after falling down, and David tells him, "I'm so glad you're okay."
Bro, what a weird switch.
Right.
Because after the bleeder valve incident, it wasn't, "I'm so glad you're okay."
He's like, "I wish you would have died."
That, and he goes, "Does it hurt? Did it hurt?"
Right.
Not, "I'm so glad you're okay."
Right.
And I think that David was truthful, very truthful. "I'm so glad you're okay."
Yeah, he's out of the fog of the possession or whatever. He's out of the fog, and he's like, "It really wasn't me, I swear. This time it wasn't me, technically."
Yeah, it was just my body.
It was the possession. It was Quentin, whoever.
Yeah, definitely. And I think he was genuinely relieved that his father was okay.
I felt that as well.
And then, because then he turns around and tells Amy that he'll never go to the West Wing again.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think, at least in this period of time, I don't think David enjoyed being possessed.
Yeah.
Because David, from the beginning, when we saw the bleeder valve incident up to this incident, I think that David has changed.
And there's been a lot of time in between those times.
Yes, yes.
And we've seen the maturity of David between those times. You know, coming from like an angry, whiny kid to his maturity level to now. Like, he's really changed.
I think you're right.
Yeah. And even further, not to get on a bunny trail, but even after this, you still see his maturity level go further than this.
Absolutely.
Like, you just see it. Like, and so it's something to be said about, at this time, his maturity level right now. Yeah. And how much he has changed between that first incident that he actually did cause to this one that really wasn't him.
Sir, and not only that, but I think that David has learned the value of family.
Definitely.
I mean, because to go to his dad, they have had a rocky relationship since the start. Yeah. Since the start. Yeah. But since Laura, their relationship has changed and their relationship has grown. Like, ever since he saw his mother burn up in the shack, the dynamic in Roger and David's relationship has changed. Roger was genuinely okay that David was okay. Yeah. Roger was genuinely relieved and happy that David was okay, and now,
despite their relationship at the time,
exactly, and now David is genuinely relieved to know that his dad's okay.
Right. And I'll add this one more thing: the one thing David has never had in his life, and up until this moment, is another person his age to be with. Yeah. And I think Amy had a lot to do with David's change of mind and heart and maturity level. And just having somebody to converse with that was his age, even though she was younger than him.
Who was alive, by the way, because he had
Who was
Sarah.
Alive? Because he's been talking to nothing but ghosts and adults his entire life, alive or dead.
Yep.
He's had nothing but adults. That's why he's always acted, always had the mindset of somebody more mature than him.
Yeah.
His age level. But Amy is the first one he's ever had in his life that is close enough to his age that he can relate to and actually be a kid with.
And actually, talk about stuff that matters to a kid that age, Yeah. Yeah. I agree with
He's
that.
never had somebody on his level to level with.
Yeah, absolutely.
Until now. And thank God for Amy, because
definitely. And Amy knows the value of family. I mean,
because she hasn't had that either.
No, she loved her brother. She loved Tom. She loved Chris.
But they were 15 years older than her?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean,
20 years older than her?
The age gap is insane. But yeah. So I think David and Amy at this point needed each other and helped each other grow and whatever.
Yeah.
So Amy tells David that Quentin won't like that he doesn't want to go back to the West Wing ever, but he doesn't care. David doesn't care. He almost killed his dad for the second time.
Yeah.
I don't know how many kids can say that, but but this makes Amy worried that Quentin is going to punish them.
Right.
I mean, that's the kind of fear that Quentin has already put in these kids.
Quentin's not going to like that.
He's not going to like it. Yep. So they're going back and forth, but they're interrupted when Professor knocks at the door. I won't fail you. He's here. And Elizabeth is very in tune with what happened, I believe, because the seance affected her in such a way, and it just kind of put her on high alert. She's already on high alert because she's still obsessed with her own death.
Right, exactly.
So this seance and what happened to Roger almost dying, has put her on
it's kind of triggered her and kind of brought her back to that a little bit.
And
as good as she's been doing since they brought her back from Wyncliffe or whatever, she's been doing really good.
She has been,
to not really focus on that and not be obsessed with it.
She's definitely on the mend at this point.
But this kind of triggers it, and
she's not quite as mentally fragile as she was. She's definitely, like I said, on the mend.
Yeah.
But this incident with Roger and the seance just happening, it's put her on high alert.
Yeah.
And she tells Stokes that the incident with Roger and now this tarot card, she believes it's just the beginning.
Right.
It's just the beginning.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure why Stokes didn't just come right out and tell her about the card, because the second he looked at it, he knew what it meant.
Yeah.
He knew what it, and she can tell he knows exactly what the card means.
Yeah.
But he doesn't seem to want to tell her. And she literally has to drag it out of him. And so he tells her this card is a warning. The card is the Tower of Destruction, and it means great unhappiness to a household. And he promises to send someone who can explain what is happening and can get help. All the children are upstairs preparing to play the game again with Quentin. And again, we don't... I never in all my years of watching Dark Shadows and all my years of being a fan of Dark Shadows, I don't understand this game.
Yeah.
I don't know what the premise is. I don't know what the plot is. All I know is every time they play it, somebody gets hurt.
The only thing I can really think of, the game, quote unquote, is that they're just playmaking and replaymaking history.
Maybe, yeah.
That's the game, quote unquote.
And maybe,
they're just reenacting history that's already happened.
Maybe so. Like, and maybe the game, because Quentin made the promise, I'm going to make my family pay. Maybe that's the game.
Yeah.
Maybe that's
Quentin changing history.
And just as a reminder, the comment section is there for you guys. So if y'all got any thoughts, let us know.
Please.
Let us know.
But that's how I interpret it. The game is that Quentin is just replaying history through his ancestors that are alive at that time. I say
his descendants.
Descendants. Thank you. Sorry, his descendants that are alive today.
Yeah, that's fair. I'll buy that.
That's the game, and like you said, he's replaying history through them, but looking for a way to change history as well. That's the game.
I will buy that.
That's all I can think of what the game is.
I'll buy that. Yeah.
But like you said, they don't know what's going on. They don't know.
They're just doing Quentin's bidding at this point.
Yeah.
And Quentin is obviously, we learned very quickly, is obviously a very angry ghost.
Yeah.
Very angry.
Yeah.
So David's gone up there to the West Wing to tell Quentin that he doesn't want to play anymore, and he doesn't want to do the things that Quentin's asking them to do, especially if it is like it was with Roger. You know,
I'm not going to do that again.
But the gramophone plays again, and it's as if the kids are under a spell, and all of a sudden they want to do what Quentin says, and now Amy is calling David by the name of Jameson again. So the next person to show up at Collinwood is Janet Finley. Janet Finley is someone that Professor Stokes sent over to figure out what's going on in the house, because Elizabeth is convinced that something otherworldly, unnatural, supernatural is happening in the house. So, and I think that Stokes agreed with her. I think that he concurred and sent over Janet Finley to scope
and he wouldn't have even invited her over if he didn't trust her expertise.
Absolutely. I mean,
and to ultimately exorcise the house.
The fact that you're conversing with Professor Stokes, well, you've already got street cred.
Right.
So
right.
Janet Finley got street cred.
Right.
So she doesn't want to know a thing. Janet Finley does not want to know a thing. Don't tell me anything. Just let me feel the house.
Let me get it organically.
Yeah.
Like
she wants to feel the house. She wants to feel the atmosphere, and she simply wants to be there and see what she can discover all on her own, which I thought was fabulous. I'm like, okay, girl, go ahead. Let me see what
that's
you got.
The best way to approach it, honestly.
Yeah.
Organically, and just let me feel what I feel.
Yeah, and that's exactly what she does.
And that's exactly what she does. And she senses the spirits in the house, and that there is war going on between them.
That is the best word. The best word to describe what is happening in this house right now.
Yeah.
Not only with Quentin, but with Vicky and Peter. Perfect description.
And she confirms that even with as little as she knows, she's sure that there is a curse on the house. And she goes to the East Wing and finds nothing.
You know what's interesting? Okay, viewers out there who are watching this for the first time, here is your spoiler alert. You better turn it off. In 3, 2, 1. It's very interesting to me. She went to the East Wing and didn't find the parallel room.
You know,
because she seems to be very in tune with the supernatural. Obviously, she is. She's a medium, but she didn't find the parallel room. But Professor Stokes did say you have to be in the right spot to see it.
Yeah,
you have to kind of squint your eyes or stand in the right corner. Or so I don't know. I just thought it was interesting that she went to the East Wing and nothing out of the ordinary struck her. Yeah. So Joe comes over. Joe is Collinwood has got a lot of visitors right now. So Joe comes over next to see Amy, and Madam Finley overhears Amy ask Joe why he's got a star on his face. And once Amy's out of the room, Madam Finley tells Joe that she saw the star too, and that he shouldn't ignore it. And she said it could be a sign of a good omen or a bad omen, depending on the position of the star.
Right.
So Joe instead of just shirking her off and dismissing her, he says, okay, what should I be on the lookout for?
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, Joe. But enough has happened to Joe at this point, too, where he's kind of on
Okay,
alert,
I'll
too.
buy it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
so she tells him to be cautious of an animal that walks like a man.
mm-hmm. And Madam Finley probes Amy about the star she saw on Joe's face, and they talk about ghosts.
Mm-hmm.
And Amy doesn't want to answer the question whether or not she's actually seen a ghost.
Mm-hmm.
Then David pops up through the secret panel in the drawing room.
Mm-hmm.
And both of the kids are under assignment from Quentin to lure Madam Finley into the West Wing.
So this is them playing the game, Quentin's game.
Yeah.
And so after Madam Finley has escaped into the West Wing, the kids tell Elizabeth that she left. She's gone.
Yeah.
She left. She does make it to the West Wing. Like I said, Madam Finley's time on this show is very short.
Definitely.
Very short.
Definitely.
She makes it into the West Wing and into the room where Quentin has been seen.
Mm-hmm.
And she gets trapped there.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't seem to bother her too much, though. She calls to Quentin's spirit after the gramophone plays for a few seconds and then stops. And she basically propositions him. It's either let me help you or let me leave.
Right.
But Quentin doesn't want to do either.
Yeah.
He just wants to torture this woman.
He doesn't want somebody like her getting to the bottom of things.
Right.
He wants to do it his way.
Right, exactly.
And she's not going to help him in what he wants to do.
Right, right. So the telephone, eventually it starts ringing, but there's nobody there. And more than anything, she doesn't seem to be scared at this point. She's just irritated.
Yeah.
It's like, let me help you or let me the crap out of here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let me the fudge out. But the phone keeps ringing. And at one point, whoever's on the other line tells her she's going to die.
Mm-hmm.
And she believes that her will is stronger than the ghost. But she seems a little shaken when her reflection in the mirror turns to that of a skeleton.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think she starts to lose it. And
Mm-hmm.
she freaks out every time that the phone rings or when there's a disturbance. But something comes and causes Madam Finley to lose her life. The coroner says natural causes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This
easy heart attack, honestly.
Easy heart attack, yeah. But, I mean, we know, us as viewers, you out there who have been watching the show, we know this was not natural.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This was not natural. I mean, the heart attack, sure, natural causes. But, so Madam Finley dies. Like I said, her time on the show is very short-lived. So, literally, the next moment, directly after this, we see Vicky entering the drawing room as Roger is delivering the news of Madam Finley's autopsy. And Vicky asks Roger if she can stay in her room tonight because she is expecting Jeff to come back this night. And because she had a dream. She had a dream where he told her that he would come back to her, and Roger suggests that they go and get Barnabas to talk to her because they've always been close.
Mm-hmm.
They already tried this, and Liz was almost attacked by the werewolf. Remember, Liz went down there to get him, but then was attacked by the werewolf.
Right.
Found Amy, and they ended up back at Collinwood anyway.
Right.
So Vicky goes back to her room and holds on to that watch of Jeff's for dear life and begs him to show up. And she's crying, she's calling out, and in the background we can see a flash of light, like there's someone there.
Yeah.
And we hear Peter's voice whispering her name. But he tells her that he can never return. Oh, and you guys, this scene coming up, oh, blah, blah. I don't even know the right words to say how this scene made me feel. I don't know how, I cannot put it into words. I think I felt some heartbreak. I think I felt some frustration, and I don't know. But Barnabas does get there. Barnabas does come to talk to Vicky. And she tells him she would have come to see him if he hadn't come to see her, because she is planning to leave town.
Yeah.
Because she can't stay here with all these memories, and somehow Barnabas sees this as the perfect opportunity to propose.
Yeah.
Barnabas, you've already proposed to her.
He's a hopeless romantic.
He is, God bless him. But he's already proposed to her once, and she said yes, but then took it back.
Yeah.
And he begs her, let me take care of you. And he knows that she doesn't love him the way that he loves her, but he'd do anything for her
Mm-hmm.
and anything to make her happy. I mean, it's incredibly thoughtful.
And can I say this? Like, I feel like even beyond him and Josette, that was a feeling that he never got to experience with Josette.
Definitely.
Because it was an arranged thing.
Yeah.
And it was as rushed as their parents could rush it.
Definitely.
And I don't doubt his love for Josette. Obviously, what he put people through for the love of Josette.
Definitely.
But this is something, a part of true love, raw love, like true raw love, that he never got to experience with Josette. That, like you just said, like he would do, even though he knows her feelings aren't reciprocated, he would still do anything for her.
Yeah.
Because of his love alone for her, not her love for him. Yeah. But his love alone for her.
And I know we've said it a million times, even on this show, but, you know, Vicky was intended in the beginning to be the replacement for Josette.
Yeah.
Like, we knew that he was grooming her for that, but
yeah,
even though Vicky would have come to it naturally because she felt such a connection to Josette, she felt such a connection to the past.
And even real quick, he didn't even realize that in Vicky before he did all that shit to Maggie.
Yeah.
He realized that with Vicky after all that.
Yeah.
And he was like, I could have been with Vicky the whole time and not had to done this whole brainwash thing, being Josette and stuff. Like,
yeah, Vicky would have come
honestly,
to it naturally.
Maggie, just her looks were the reincarnation of Josette, but Vicky in her soul, was the reincarnation of Josette.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
I agree with you. Like, yes.
And he didn't. That's something he didn't realize until after the whole Maggie thing.
I agree.
Which is why I think he so delicately handles Vicky the way he does, and loves her the way he does.
Yeah.
Because it's so natural, like you said. It's just so natural.
And I think that there's a lot of Josette qualities in Vicky.
Definitely.
Like you said, like I think you're right. I think that Josette is reincarnated in the spirit of Vicky.
Yeah.
You know,
just because Maggie looks like her.
And that is one thing that I love that they did in the revival series, that they made Vicky be Josette's double.
Absolutely.
Because Vicky was so much like Josette on her own before Barnabas started grooming her. Absolutely. She was so much like Josette all on her own.
Absolutely.
And
that was the right thing to do.
So I don't know. That's why at first I didn't like it, but then when you dig a little bit deeper, you're like, absolutely though, that is the right call. That is the right call.
One day we'll get into the revival series after we're done.
Yes, we will.
And we'll talk about this again.
Yes, we will.
I thought it was an absolute right move for them to do for the revival. It was an absolute right. It just cuts it just cuts a lot of unnecessary things out to keep the story moving.
Absolutely.
And we'll get into it one day, guys.
Yeah, yeah.
We're going to keep moving on this stuff.
I just had to mention it because
But you're right. What a
perfect call.
You can't talk about this and not bring up
that
definitely. Stuff as well.
But this man bore his soul to her.
Yeah.
During this whole proposal, let me take care of you thing.
Yeah.
And she swiftly turned him down.
Yeah.
And her reasoning is because she'll never stop loving Jeff, and that her love for him will always exist, so a part of him will always exist.
Right.
And
Vicky, being the woman she is, she just doesn't want to be unfair to Barnabas.
Yeah.
And that is so commendable of a woman, period.
Yeah.
Like, look, I do love you and I care about you, and yes, I would marry you, but I gotta let you know that it will never be 100% because I feel about this person that way. And
if Peter / Jeff had simply died, I think Vicky,
like Burke.
Yeah. I think that Vicky
you can let go.
Yeah, I think she might have let go of him. He didn't die in the way that someone would naturally die.
Not in the traditional I died way.
Yeah.
He disappeared right in front of her face.
Yeah.
So to her, and I would be the same friggin' way, he didn't die. He just left me.
Yeah.
He left. And I can go to him.
If you try hard enough,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Christopher Reeve, I love you. But it's like a somewhere in time thing for me.
Yeah.
You know, literally, it's a somewhere in time. Can I get there?
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you try hard enough, yes, you can get there.
Definitely.
Oh.
And all of that aside, Barnabas does not try to empathize with her.
Yeah.
He doesn't try to understand.
If anybody can understand, it's Barnabas.
But he doesn't try. He doesn't try. He only feels her rejection.
Yeah.
Like her rejection of him, and that he
Yeah.
tells her, instead of, "Oh, Vicky, I understand. I can totally we'll let this be our final farewell."
I mean, you got to let go. You got to know when to let go.
And she tells him she'll never forget him. And we didn't realize that this would in fact be
this is actually
their final farewell.
Goodbye.
This actually was.
How many times have they said goodbye, or, oh, it's not going to work out, or no, we won't be together. We're just friends. This was the ultimate and last goodbye.
Yeah. And so,
like you said, in the moment, you don't realize until you realize that was the final goodbye.
Absolutely. I mean, at least in this moment.
Yeah.
Spoilers again. They will see each other once more. We're not there yet, but we'll get there later on.
Yeah.
But so once Barnabas leaves, Vicky goes back to crying for Jeff.
Mm-hmm.
And the man appears. He appears in his Peter Bradford clothes, still wearing his wedding ring, though.
Mm-hmm.
Still wearing that wedding ring.
Mm-hmm.
Her love for him brought him back, but he implores her, begs her, please forget me. You have to forget me. The second that the clock strikes 8, he will return to 1795, and he will never come back.
And he cannot come back.
He cannot come back. It's only about 5 minutes away from this point. So she begs him to take her back with him. Just take me back with you. Yeah. We'll survive. And he tries to refuse, but now that Vicky has him back, oh, no, there's no friggin' way she's letting him go without her.
Yeah.
And downstairs, while this is all happening upstairs with Peter and Vicky, Roger is leaving for London on a business trip. Mm-hmm. And Elizabeth and Barnabas are seeing him off, and Elizabeth wonders what Barnabas is doing in the drawing room because she heard a man upstairs in Vicky's room. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was you.
I thought you were upstairs.
And Barnabas, seeming to realize what has happened, he hauls ass upstairs, runs, and they get to Vicky's room just in time to see her and Peter disappear. Again, I don't know what to feel.
Like, I cannot tell you, and I almost want to cry, honestly, but I cannot tell you, every time I watch this scene, the gravity of this scene, that it hit me the first time I saw it, and it still hits me every time I watch it. Just everything that they had been through with Vicky after Jeff disappearing, after everything they'd been with her, and after everything Vicky has put them through, and the whole convincing Vicky move on, and Vicky's like, no, this is for real, like, I know what I'm talking about.
Right.
The gravity of that scene, that just right in time, but not
just a second too late.
Just a second too late.
Yeah, yeah.
And they walk in. You are so happy. But it's like so depressing. As well.
I mean, just to see Barnabas walk in just in time, and he walks towards them
and he's like,
doesn't make it in time. Doesn't make it in time.
God.
Like this was an ending of an era that started when the whole show began.
Yeah.
I mean, Dark Shadows started with Victoria Winter's journey to Collinwood,
and she's just gone.
All of the voiceovers belong to Vicky, and we begin a new chapter without Vicky in it. And as a viewer, like you said, especially through the first walkthrough, especially that first time I ever saw it, it hit me so hard.
It's like, are we really going to go the rest of the show without Vicky?
Yeah.
When it started with Vicky?
Even Barnabas said it.
How are we going to do this?
Yeah, even Barnabas said it. He was like, what are we supposed to do without Vicky? What are we supposed to do without? He said, I don't know what we're going to do without her.
Elizabeth said it. Barnabas said it. Maggie said it when she took her place. What are we going to do without Vicky?
Yeah.
I can't replace her.
So, yeah. Like, we're going to learn how that looks, y'all.
Yeah.
We're going to learn how it looks.
Ugh.
And so, okay. So, first things first. Without Vicky and seeing what happened to Vicky and Jeff disappear into the past, this completely set back all of the progress Elizabeth made with her preoccupation with death.
Yeah.
She becomes far more obsessed with death than she ever had been before.
Yep.
Not to mention what this has done to Barnabas.
Yeah.
Like Julia, God bless her, tries to be the voice of reason and tell them that she chose this. Mm-hmm. Vicky chose this. This is not something that happened.
She wasn't taken away from you.
Yeah. Vicky, this did not happen to
Vicky.
Like
Josette was. She wasn't taken away from you. This was her choice.
She did this. This did not happen to Vicky. Vicky chose this.
Yeah.
And she wanted to be with Peter, even if it meant her own life.
Yeah.
But Barnabas much like he was with Vicky when he was in the room with her, blames Peter for interfering.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, this did not happen to her. She chose it. She chose Peter.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, that's the end of Vicky. That's the end of Victoria Winters.
Like, there's really nothing else to say
really...
until the reprieve of the last thing to actually say. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
And we'll get there.
We'll get there. But for now, we're going to move right along here to Chris Jennings.
Yeah, he's been pacing the floor of his very small hotel room and even called up to Collinwood to speak to Julia about getting some sleeping pills. But she and Barnabas decided that Chris could wait because of the spiral that Elizabeth has found herself in since Vicky disappeared.
Yeah.
Julia says that she has had a serious relapse and is now more consumed with death than ever, and she isn't sure how to help her.
Yeah. It's like physically Elizabeth is fine, but that mental capacity that she was gaining back completely snapped. It shattered.
And further.
Yeah.
If anything.
It broke more, it damaged her more, and we're on a downward spiral here.
Yeah.
So next we see Joe bringing Amy home from the movies, and because Amy lives at Collinwood now, and it really, it should have been Chris.
Yeah.
And to all of the onlookers who have no idea what's going on with Chris, it looks like he's dropping the ball again.
Mm-hmm.
And I think to Joe as well. And Joe seems to be kind of picking up the slack with Amy, being a big brother to Amy, because Chris is not doing it. And before Joe leaves, he asks Amy what if she really saw the star on Joe's face, because he's been thinking about it, And do you see it now? And she says, no, I really don't. I really did see it, but I don't see it now.
Yeah.
It's like, that was the only time, the other day.
Yeah.
And right at this moment, Elizabeth is coming down the stairs in a daze because she's mentally broken now. And Amy says hello to her, but she doesn't answer, and Elizabeth walks out the door.
Mm-hmm.
And Amy just kind of watches her leave, kind of goes after her, but then the moon catches her attention. And she's just staring intently up at it, just staring at it.
Yeah.
And Barnabas comes in the room and says, hey, what are you doing, Amy? And Amy knows something has happened in the house that night. Barnabas doesn't really think much of it until Amy says, Elizabeth left. She left.
Yeah.
And Barnabas, stay put. I'm going to go see where she went and, go to bed. But Amy was like, no, I want to stay up till she gets back. I'm worried about her. And so Barnabas was like, you know what? Fine. Stay here. I'll be back. And once Barnabas has left the room to get Julia, Amy goes outside to look for Elizabeth, because these kids don't listen. Not ever. And
no, they don't.
They don't.
They don't.
They don't.
Not
listen to
ever.
nothing.
Not once.
Not now.
Can
not
I recall
ever.
that they ever did anything they were told?
Not now. Not ever. So Barnabas goes out and starts looking for Amy and Elizabeth, while Julia stays behind in case one or both of them come back. And Chris shows up agitated, and wanting the sleeping pills that he called about earlier. And Julia, she's distracted, and she's a little bit hesitant, but she does give them to him.
Yeah.
She's like, look, follow the directions, but we probably ought to have an appointment. Why aren't you sleeping? And he takes them as soon as he gets back to his room.
Them, not one.
Yeah,
he takes them.
Every single one of them he takes.
God.
Like, she gave him like 3 sleeping pills. He chucked him down and swallowed them, and that was it. But Joe shows up and gives Chris a piece of his mind. You need to step up with Amy. I took her to the movies. I can't keep doing this, and Joe thinks that Chris can't sleep because his conscience is getting to him about Amy,
Right.
But Chris is just trying to warn him without actually telling him why.
Yeah.
Look, you got to get out of here. You got to get out.
Yeah.
Joe does leave, but tells Chris to do something about Amy. And, I mean, the sleeping pills, they seem to work just for an instant, for a little while. But when the transformation happens,
right.
I think the transformation happens before they can actually take effect.
They'll take effect on his human form.
Yeah, exactly. But the animal, I don't think so. And during all of this, we see Elizabeth at the mausoleum where Amy has found her. And she goes through the whole people will think I'm dead and they'll bury me alive thing. And then she passes out.
Mm-hmm.
And Barnabas finds them both, brings them back to Collinwood. And this freaks Elizabeth out enough to where she wants to make plans for the children because she doesn't want them to be left alone if and when something happens to her.
Mm-hmm.
And she's afraid to go to sleep because she thinks she won't wake up again. So she begs Barnabas, call Maggie Evans and get her here immediately. Like, get her here. And Joe's at Maggie's when she gets the call from Barnabas, and he was like, well, I'll take you up there. Let me take you up there.
Mm-hmm.
And we know what happens. Elizabeth offers her Vicky's position. Vicky's body ain't even cold yet.
But she ain't dead.
She ain't dead.
But she ain't here.
Right? So Maggie does accept the position as the kid's governess pretty immediately. She doesn't ask a lot of questions when Elizabeth asks her to start that very night.
Yeah.
She sends Joe into town for some of her things so she can, and she'll get the rest later. And once Joe gets to Maggie's, the werewolf attacks.
Yeah.
And Joe had the star on his face, so he had to be the next victim. Joe does survive the attack. He doesn't die because he stabbed the animal, the werewolf. And he does manage to rip a piece of his shirt from him.
Mm-hmm.
And then he realizes that there's something really familiar about this piece of shirt. Joe won't answer specifically about the animal and doesn't want the police called on the matter.
Yeah.
Because he knows that Chris is involved. And Joe is still trying to protect him. Like, family solidarity, y'all.
Yeah.
It shows up over and over in this show.
Mm-hmm.
But the following evening, Joe shows up at Chris's room and he starts interrogating him about his involvement with the animal as the moon is rising.
Yeah.
And Chris tries to throw him out, but he's unsuccessful. Joe witnesses the transformation of the werewolf.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And before Chris loses consciousness, he instructs Joe, go to the drawer and get the pistol.
Yeah.
You'll know what to do when the time comes.
Mm-hmm.
And oh my, this scene was so intense. He was like, "Oh, you always wondered about quiet cousin Chris and why I never came around. Now you know. Now you're gonna find out. Here it comes."
Yeah.
And he witnesses Chris turn into the werewolf. I mean, Joe had recovered a little from this whole Angelique debacle because he was in a very fast downward spiral, like a very fast down with this whole Angelique thing. And he seemed to be like Elizabeth. He seemed to be getting himself back.
Yeah.
Like, seemed to be recovering from that. Like, almost pretty much back to Joe. You know, he was still knight in shining armor, which is why the heck he's even at Chris's room right now.
Right.
And then he witnessed Chris turn into the werewolf, and it just fell apart mentally for him, like it did with Elizabeth.
Mm-hmm.
And witnessing the transformation after narrowly escaping the previous night has just caused him to lose all rationality, all reason. Anything starting to make sense, Joe does not see it. He doesn't have it. It's gone.
Yeah.
And he escapes Chris again this time as well. He does shoot, but it doesn't do anything to stop the werewolf. I mean, it does momentarily stun him, I think, but it doesn't
enough
stop
for Joe to escape, I guess.
Enough for Joe to escape, yeah. He goes to Collinwood, goes up to Amy's room, wakes her up, and starts packing her stuff.
Yeah.
I think Joe got it in his mind that he could take her away from the chaos from both of her brothers being turned into animals.
Yeah.
I mean, both of her brothers, both of them turned into animals.
Mm-hmm.
And I think at first, I mean, Joe acted like he wanted to kill her at first. Because it's like, okay, your brothers turn into animals. What are you going to turn into? You know?
Right, exactly.
But then he got it in his mind, no, you're still okay. I can pull you away from this. I can save you.
Right.
So, so like I said, all rationality and reason has left this man. And while this is all happening with Joe, Elizabeth is having a dream, and welcome back, Cassandra.
Right, right.
Cassandra beckons to her, not Angelique, Cassandra.
Yeah.
And beckons to her and tells her that the nearer she comes to her, the closer to death that she is. And when she touches her, she will appear dead.
Yeah.
And Cassandra calls it an account to settle between the two of them.
Yeah.
And even though Angelique / Cassandra is gone and out of the picture, she still wants to torture Elizabeth and make sure that what she promised her will still come to pass. I don't understand that.
Yeah.
I don't understand. Why is Cassandra so hell-bent on torturing Elizabeth? What did Elizabeth do?
Right.
I mean, yeah, she opposed you, but so did everybody else in the house.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Maybe because she's the matriarch.
Maybe
She's really the glue that's holding everything together.
Yeah, I guess if you tack the head, the rest will follow. But
Right.
still, So Elizabeth wakes up from the dream and asks Carolyn and Julia to go check on Amy because she's afraid that something has happened to her because Amy was in the dream, you know? So she was worried about Amy. Amy does fight Joe on leaving. It's like, I don't want to leave. I like it here. I don't want to leave here. But I think she's too afraid to refuse him. I think she can see how freaking crazy he is.
Right.
And she, you know, she does still fight a little bit. You know, Joe is twice her size and is able to drag her out of the house. He has to drag her out of the house.
Yeah.
And he gets her outside into the woods and starts talking crazy about how Chris knows that he has Amy. And in the chaos, Amy does get away and runs back to Collinwood.
Yeah.
And Joe follows her back there, and Julia sees him in his crazed state and can't make any sense out of it, even to the point of whacking him across the face.
Mm-hmm.
He starts laughing. You don't know what he is. You don't know what. Stop it, Joe. Smack.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Julia's getting pretty good with that bitch hand. I swear. That
I
pimp
know.
hand.
I know.
Carolyn has gone to check on Amy and finds her gone. And Julia tries to get in touch with Chris, but of course she can't. And she tells Carolyn, go back and lie to your mother because we cannot tell her that what she thinks is this is going to, no, absolutely not. So they make a plan to find her, but Elizabeth isn't satisfied until she goes to check on Amy herself. And once she gets there, Angelique is there waiting for her.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time Carolyn gets back to Elizabeth, she is quote unquote dead.
Yep.
End of an episode.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that is about all the time we have for this one. Next time we'll get into the aftermath and what happens to Collinwood without Elizabeth and now without Vicky and now that Maggie is the new governess. That's what we'll get into next time.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what though, Maggie is one tough bird. She don't put up with a lot of crap from the kids, and she does kind of pay for it a little bit, but we'll talk about that next time. So just as a friendly reminder, y'all, reach out to us with comments, concerns, questions. We are still at Between the Shadows 2021 at Gmail. We are on Facebook. We are on X. I still can't call it X. I hate that. Whatever. Anyway, we're on X, formerly known as Twitter, and we are on YouTube and we are on Instagram. Reach out to us, guys. When we, as always, just want to say thank you for joining us tonight, for giving us your time, for joining us in this love for Dark Shadows. We love it so much. By now, you guys have probably heard about this weekend happening in July, July 19th and 20th at Lyndhurst, where, of course, both movies were recorded. Catherine Lee Scott is going to be there with a meet and greet. She's got some special guests, Marie Wallace and Sharon Lentz, rather, formerly known as Sharon Smith. And, it's going to be an exciting time. No details on whether or not we're actually going to make it, but we're sure going to try. Yeah. And would love to be there. And so thank you guys so much. We'll see you next time. Guys, remember to keep it between us and the shadows. Good night.
Good night.
Hello, Barnabas. I'm so glad to see you. If you hadn't come to me, I would have gone to you to say goodbye. I just told Mrs. Stoddard that I'm going to leave Collinwood. I fell in love. I married the man I loved, and then I lost him. If I stayed here, the memories would be unbearable. Surely you can understand that. So I have to go away. Where, I don't know, but I have to go. I'm not deserting any of you, Barnabas, and you mustn't see it that way. You're the kindest, most considerate man I know. I feel very close to you, and I always will. I'm very honored that you want me to be your wife. I only wish I didn't have to say no. In many ways, I feel something like love for you. If I hadn't met Jeff, he isn't gone, that's just it. I know now that he'll never return to me. I mean that I'll never stop loving him. My love for him will always exist in me, so a part of him will always exist too. I'm sorry, Barnabas, but I'll never stop loving the man I did marry. I have one husband and I can never have another. I only wish I didn't have to hurt you.
You've been listening to Between the Shadows, a Dark Shadows podcast.
All original Dark Shadows music, video clips, images, and media are not owned by Between the Shadows and is the sole property of Dan Curtis Productions and is only used to promote Dark Shadows and should not be distributed, copied, or reproduced.